welcome to the latest edition of the Rider Rumblings video podcast. This is edition number, Mark, what's our number? 30, 40, we're in the 40.
Is 39.
This is number 39, so I remembered it so well. This is Murray McCormick, my ever diminishing, not in terms of credibility, but in terms of sheer
bulk. Volume?
Volume?
No, maybe not volume. Size.
Murray now weighs 18 pounds. And between us, I'm below 240. When we started doing this, I was in the 250s. And Murray was, 712 pounds?
Something like that. I'm below 260 now. I'm below 260.
You've lost, 66 pounds was the last number?
52.
I thought you said 66 on Twitter or Facebook or...
No, I think I was that weight, 266. But I'm 52
anyway.
Now. That's 1 pound a week for a year.
That's outstanding.
Thank you.
We're very proud of you, Mur.
Yeah. I have clothes if people want some fat clothes.
I might take them.
No, you
We're gonna bash around a few things today. There's not a ton has changed since we last podcasted in the middle of last week after the peak of the free agency period. The Rough Riders assigned Manny Arsenault. There's a few other things that may need to happen in the days ahead, and there's also the 2020 Grey Cup bid and the lucky candidate or perhaps candidates being announced on Thursday. But I'd like to begin with some questions. If you have questions, please feel free to email them to me at rvanstone@leader. I did the second straight week I got my email address wrong.
How long have you had this email address for?
Oh, geez. When did they change them over? Anyway. It's rvanstone at postmedia.com, RVANSTONE at postmedia.com, or you can tweet them to me at Rob Vanstone. I can't remember my Twitter handle, and I can't remember my email address. So at Rob Vanstone on Twitter or rvanstone at postmedia.com. And
you made the last week. It's not too hard to follow that intro on that questions.
No.
I'll be able to do better than that.
Yes.
I've had my lips for a while.
It's been one of those days. We have a question from Cal Kelly, who had the foresight to go to New Zealand for part of the winter and escape this. This was set before the free agency period. I apologize, Cal, but I missed it last week. He's talking about young NCAA quarterbacks, and perhaps the Rough Riders could be looking at grooming them as opposed to the signing the veterans. And I'm kind of disappointed they didn't go in that direction. It's something they haven't typically done, but why not mind the negotiation list, he says, while trying to suppress a sneeze, and see if you can grow a quarterback as opposed to going with the retread model, which they seem to have done. Murr?
I always think that, first off, I watch practice every day, and I see how many reps the second or third string guy gets. And it's not that many reps. So it's hard to develop a guy in season. So you have to get a guy who's ready to come up and do. Then you also have to get a guy like a Darian Durant who's willing to spend 3 years learning the game, which is pretty hard to do, to ask a guy to make the minimum or slightly less than the minimum to learn about the game. So it's not.
How do you make less than the minimum?
Well, sorry.
Sorry.
It's one of those days. We'll check. We'll have our error checker at the end of this broadcast to see how we
Sorry
do.
for interrupting. I couldn't resist that
That's
one.
okay. But it's also hard to ask a guy to do that, spend 3 years, especially nowadays with other sort of opportunities. And the other thing is, how many of these NCAA quarterbacks are ready to play CFL football? That's another big step. You got to find a guy. And there's many other reasons. You're going to lose. You're going to go with a young quarterback. It's not going to be 12-6. It's going to be 9-9. If you're
it's
lucky,
not going to be 12-6 anyway, though.
No, maybe, never not. But it's
I
just,
don't know.
It takes a lot of patience to develop a young quarterback. And I don't disagree that they keep trying to find him, but I think you have to find the young guy that's willing to spend the time, learn the game, and then keep re-signing him.
So why have so many quarterbacks on a negotiation list if you're just going to say we're going to keep signing the Zach Colaroses of the world or the Kevin Glenn's of the world?
You ever made spaghetti? Sometimes you take a strand, you see if it sticks to the wall. You just take up sand and you hope it sticks to the wall. You've got to take a chance. You've got to find. I'm not saying you give up and say, no, it's never going to find a quarterback, but I think you've got to keep trying to find that guy that's going to step up. Bo Levi's another guy who stepped up, and Mike Riley's another guy who came up here with a little bit of experience.
Like, name the last Rider quarterback who started out on their negotiation list and became a very good CFL quarterback.
Darian Durant.
No,
he was traded. Sorry,
he started on Ottawa's negotiation list, and then was on Hamilton's.
Smart enough to trade him. For him.
Okay. But if you look at the last one, the Riders have groomed from scratch, from putting him on the neg list, and it was Dan Rambo who did it. Does that give it away?
God, that's a long time ago, Rob.
1987.
Okay.
Kent Austin. It's been 32 years.
Did he have time in the NFL, though?
He went to the St. Louis Cardinals and spent a year there, but the Riders originally neg-listed him. And
did he turn out any good?
He turned out pretty well. So that's how long it's been since the quarterback who started on the Riders negotiation list has become something exceptional. I think you can, if you're not splitting hairs like I did with the Darian Durant thing, you can say, okay, they took Darian Durant from 2006 where he ran once and threw one. What
about Kevin Glenn? Didn't Kevin Glenn start on the leather helmets days?
Kevin Glenn started here in 2001, but had several wiggles before he came back here. So, but you could say the Riders found Kevin Glenn and he turned into a very good quarterback. But there aren't many, and there hasn't been.
How
that
many teams
patience.
in the CFL have done it too, though? Can you name? Can you some off the top of your head?
Well, if you look at the Calgary Stampeders,
they do. Yeah, look at. I mean, remember Dave Dickinson putting out that book once? The thing we wanted to be signed. I remember way back when he put out his own. Back then, you put out like a binder of his highlights with clippings and stuff.
We actually got one once upon a time. Somebody was lobbying for the Riders to sign Dave Dickinson, but Dave Dickinson is one that the Calgary Stampeders developed from scratch. You look at Jeff Garcia, and they had him. Obviously, Bo Levi Mitchell. So there's 3 examples just from the Calgary Stampeders.
Well,
so
even so let's have him put that to say if they get a good NCAA court, they're not happening this year. Unless there's someone in there, some NCAA guy they got on their list that's just ready to explode. So they still got stuck with Zach Collaros, unfortunately. And
the bigger issue, and one that I'm writing about in my column to appear Tuesday, is you might be able to get by with Zach Collaros if you have a number 2 who can give him some relief.
Well, I like Cody Fitzgerald.
What's he done?
Beat the Riders in the East Final
as a short yardage quarterback.
As a short yardage quarterback. I know I'm being joking.
Sorry,
but I'm not against Cody. I'm thinking you want a guy who's put in his time to learn the game. Short yardage quarterbacks you learn the game. Matt Dunnigan once told me that short yardage it's almost a death knell for a quarterback once you get short yardage because you don't learn how to do everything else. You're just learning how to go 1 yard or 2 yards. But
why not just have him do the short yardage stuff, which they know he's proficient at, and sign a veteran? And then if Zach Collaros falters, you don't have the precipitous drop off that they did last year in the playoffs of all times when they went from Zach Collaros to Brandon Bridge.
Of the 2 veterans you're obviously referring to as Lule and Glenn, unless you're talking about Ron Lancaster coming back or Darian Durant or something like that. They both come with baggage and uncertainty. It's not guaranteed. Like Lule, unfortunately, is the nicest guy you're going to meet in football, but he gets injured a lot.
But so does Zach Collaros. So why can't they play off one another? One's hurt for a few games, put in the other one. The other guy gets hurt, go back to the other one.
But how does that develop a quarterback?
They are obviously disinclined to do so.
Yeah.
Unless Cody Fajardo turns into something more than a short yardage guy.
How do you sell Kevin Glenn to come here? You're going to be the insurance blanket again, the insurance policy. He didn't throw a pass last year. I wonder if he's kind of itching to throw a pass or two, maybe to be involved.
This is the place then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just if you're gonna decide that Zach Collaros is your number 1, I think you've got to have a number 2 that you can.
Oh, you have to have a number 2,
especially when you've got a defense. I think that's still a pretty good defense. It's not like and with 1-year contracts being what they are now, there really isn't a focus on developing people.
No.
So if you want to win right away, you look at the playoffs. The Riders were totally exposed in the playoffs because they didn't have anybody. Zach Collaros, say what you want about Zach Collaros, but he would have won that game against Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
He would have made those passes to Naaman Roosevelt that Brandon Bridge was unable to.
Yeah.
So where's that 1A, 1B model that you might be able to employ successfully?
How many teams have a 1A, 1B model successfully?
Well, most teams don't need it.
Yeah.
If you look at the West, they've got Winnipeg's has the luxury of Strevler. But if you look around the West Division, most teams don't need it. The Rough Riders, I think there's a very good case that they do need something like that.
Well, that kind of tells you where we are at free agency. We just spent 8 minutes talking about the backup quarterback.
Yes.
Let's move on.
This is Saskatchewan. The other question we had, and this is more lighthearted, I guess, with an emphasis on the word light. It is from Nova Scotia.
Oh, that's the Scotties next door.
Julian Ron in Nova Scotia.
Oh.
As Robin Murray's combined corpulence continues to evaporate, will Rider Rumblings soon be renamed Where's the Beef?
Oh,
See,
like
people are noticing.
That's true.
Your evaporation and my more
appreciate
gradual
that. I think it's
reduction.
Where's the protein, though. We like any kind of protein.
Protein is big. I didn't even know what it was until...
We get bags of it. Imagine, you ever thought back in the day we'd actually pour scoops of protein into water?
I got a bag of protein shake goop sitting by my desk.
You can't stop disparaging all our good things we're doing.
Anyway.
Just stop eating rice cakes. Put something
rice
on your
cakes.
rice cake.
I get the chocolate chip ones or chocolate and caramel, and they're okay. Just those plain ones. Anyway, Emmanuel Arsenault. Good move, bad move?
Is it similar to what they did with Jamal Richardson back in 13? I was thinking off the top of my head. 13, 14?
15 that he came back for.
And it didn't cost him anything. Found out his knee wasn't ready to go. You send him off on his little way. He still could have been a good receiver.
At least Jamal Richardson started the season, though. It doesn't sound like Emmanuel Arsenault is going to do that.
But he was never 100. He wasn't good at mini camp, and I don't think maybe he was particularly great during this season.
No.
Because he was still... And
me in the meantime, Nabin Roosevelt's not playing.
Yeah.
They're playing
I have
Jamal
to admit,
Richardson.
Manny, of all the names I was looking through, I just discounted Manny Arsenault right off the top. I didn't understand why they wanted him, other than maybe, around this, maybe like a late NFL cut in the end of January, and whenever he comes back in somewhere in September, because I don't think he's not going to start the season. It's a 1 year injury most times for most normal human beings.
He played 9 games last year. Actually, averaged 17.3 yards a catch, which was an improvement over what he'd typically been doing.
He's having one of his best seasons,
but he only had 1 touchdown.
But
which
well with these guys.
So he's probably overqualified for this receiving corps.
But he also got hurt against the Riders too, which is also interesting because I remember that was in I can't remember exactly where that happened, but I know he got hurt against the Riders. So it's a gamble, a small gamble. I don't think he's getting the big salary. He's just, see what you can do, see if you can come back, train with us, put you through that, and maybe come September they got a pretty good veteran receiver.
One thing they did do on Friday, they announced the re-signing of Brett Lowther. Excellent move. This is somebody I think is good enough to kick in the National Football League. You look at the caliber of kicking in that league, and the longer you can lock up Lowther, the better off you are.
I know, and there's some comments made that he was thinking of holding out, kind of that stuff. He wasn't going to do that. He still appreciates what he was going to do. He wanted more money. He deserved more money. The Riders felt he deserved more money, and they all kind of passed out the checks, and things worked out well. What a good position to be in. Tyler Crepeña's in there now, so they can maybe trade him. I don't think you can keep 2 of those kickers of that caliber on a team.
Tyler Crepeña can kick in this league and will somewhere.
But the problem with trading a kicker in the CFL, well, mind you, the Calgary Stampeders got Jerome Messam for him, so that was a pretty good deal. I think there's someone else in that package. Do you remember that one?
Was it
draft pick?
Who came back?
Crepeña was the one guy. Maybe he was the only one we remember. That's
Picton.
No. Mitch? No.
The lineman. Picton, the lineman came back.
Aaron Picton. Okay.
Sorry.
Look at that. I didn't remember the name from you. Yeah, but how much value you can get for a guy? They're not going to come out of camp with Crepeña and Lowther on the same team. So they're going to try to. And what do you trade him for? Well, they have a lot of needs. They need a receiver.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a lot for somebody that teams know that you can't keep.
Yeah.
But if there's a team that needs a kicker.
But boy, it's going to be probably one of the more interesting training camp battles I've seen, those 2 of them. Because they're all friends. The 3 guys.
Well, it won't be a battle.
No.
I mean, it's Brett Lowther.
Well,
it's probably something you would think they would do before the off season's over.
Hopefully they can get, once free agency settles down and they find a way that someone's. I didn't look to see who needs a kicker, but Dallas doesn't. Steelers good for a while there. To the center of the Steelers, we could use a kicker.
Grey Cup. Who's getting it?
I say both. And I've read this a couple times on the internet. They're going to announce 20 in 2021, which isn't very fair. But
I think we can safely say Montreal's not going to.
I think that's because they're not having a viewing party.
Yeah. How do you have a How do you organize a viewing party just so that for the express purpose of talking to some disappointed parties on one hand or the other and saying, so your thoughts on not getting the Grey Cup? That tells me they're awarding multiple Grey Cups.
Yeah, but I wonder how that feels to the teams that, let's say, didn't want to bid on 20 and were kind of thinking about 21. And thinking, okay, where does that put us in a position? Because if Montreal is turned down with the condition of the roof and what's happening at Olympic Stadium, they're not around for 3 or 4 more years. Like this is their window. So maybe this gives an opportunity to give them Hamilton's due. I think we can say that it's been a while since they haven't think.
And Bob Young deserves it
for everything he's done.
Look, it's the benevolence he's shown not only with regard to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but with regard to the Canadian Football League. You would think would be factored in.
And I've also seen this, and it's a good point in the internet. There are going to be a lot of Grey Cups in Regina. I think, kind of maybe get some little excitement out east for the Grey Cup and that kind of stuff. See if we can move out there. But yeah, which one do you think is going to win?
If I had to guess, I would say Hamilton this year and Saskatchewan 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, pardon me. 2021.
2021. It was kind of interesting. I was reading some of our stories on back through the Grey Cup things, and one of the prevalent themes amongst many of the stories was hotel space. And in '95, there wasn't any, so we went with that huddle up in Saskatchewan. In '03, there was a little sort of a bump in hotel. Still not a lot, so friends with friends. And then 13, there was lots of space. And now there's something like 34, 35 hotels compared to, no one seems to know how many hotel rooms are in 95. I can't find that figure, but we've gone from that sort of backwaters, too small to play host to a Grey Cup, to we can do it easy. Like you can stay in hotels in White City and still be within the city and quite enough. So we have, everything's in place to have a great Grey Cup. That's why I kind of say, I go to Hamilton, I stay downtown all the time. I'm not impressed with the hotels down there. They still have to prove to me they have a place to stay. And you just say, well, you can stay in Burlington or you can stay in Oak, but still, do you want to get on a bus and have to drive all the way to the Grey Cup, and when it's 1 o'clock in the morning, getting on the bus and going back? I don't know. It depends what you want to do, but Hamilton's going to get it. I still think Hamilton will get it because it's about time. 90. I'm just off the top of my head. Was that 98?
96.
96. So I knew it was the Snow Bowl.
Snowball.
And it doesn't mean they couldn't have another Snow Bowl, but maybe if they move the dates up again. No. Haven't heard much talk about that lately.
No, that's kind of
praise the Lord. Off. That's a good one, but I'm not in favor of that.
You know, it's we shall see. I would. It just seems to me that they've set this up in a manner that they're not just going to say, and the winner is, and everybody else is disappointed.
Because I was laying in bed on Saturday night thinking that, like, how do they get two viewing parties? How do they get away with that? And I kind of thought, before I fell asleep, maybe you have going to announce two, and then I read a few places online and stuff. Yeah. Here's
one thing though that concerns me. Why not make this decision before the free agency period, so that the team that's hosting or the teams that are hosting can keep that in mind when they're offering contracts to players. And if you're the Rough Riders and you know for sure you've got the Grey Cup in 2020, for example, maybe you're more inclined to offer 2-year contracts instead of, or try to get players locked up for 2 years instead of 1. The Regina Pats ran into that scenario in 2017 when the Memorial Cup was awarded after the trade deadline. Instead of having 2 trade deadlines where John Paddock could look at it and say, I definitely have to keep 2018 in mind, there was only 1. He still made some very smart moves with that in mind, got 2 years out of Josh Mahura, for example. But why not have the announcement a month earlier or a few weeks earlier, and then the teams that win know that they're building for a home field Grey Cup? The bottom line is they go to win a Grey Cup every year, regardless of where they play. And if you're just building the Grey Cups at home, I don't think you're building your team with this time of having any sustained success. So I think the bottom line is you're going to win Grey Cups every year. The year you get one at home, I don't think you have to change your attitude. It's kind of like a really good golf course being host to a major curling, or hosting a major golf event. If you have a really good golf course, the Wascana Country Club is an awesome golf course. You can step on there and host a major event. But wouldn't it factor in though if you say, look, we want to build a team here.
But then what are you doing the other years?
You're building a team
for the Grey Cup.
Maybe you're going to try some things and develop some players and as opposed and sign some players to
1-year deals. I think there's a whole lot of
and
things.
Try and sign some players to longer term contracts as opposed to going year by year. Yes, teams want to win the Grey Cup every year, but I think when the Grey Cup's here, don't you have to? Isn't there more of an incentive to build to that?
Well, it depends.
To that point? I don't know why they couldn't have done it a couple of weeks earlier.
I'm still celebrating because I'm old enough to remember when free agency used to kick off at midnight.
Yes, wasn't that lovely?
Wasn't that a lovely sort of marketing plan? We'd be sitting. That was before the days we even had the internet. Like we'd be sitting there, waiting by phones. I don't even know how. We probably had internets a little bit, but not much. And thinking at midnight. Why would they do that then? Like, and then remember we used to have the draft on weird times. Two days have it at noon during the day and stuff. So they kind of, the CFL's made some steps forward, maybe asking for this, maybe because I think, but this kind of got pushed back a little bit too.
Yeah, it was supposed to be earlier. I don't know why it's dragging.
No, it said mid-February, but I think
even from a planning standpoint, wouldn't you like to have more time to plan a Grey Cup that's next year?
2.5 years.
You're talking 2020.
That's, but the bid's already in place. It's kind of so the bids. The work's been done. They know what they're going to do. So it's just a matter of implementing them. And it's not, I bet you there's people sitting in offices right now in Hamilton and Regina, what are we doing? Okay, we're going to get both Grey Cups. What do we do next? Well, no, here's what we do now and move on from there.
Thursday should be interesting.
Should be. Just bad timing for deadline world.
No, nobody cares about our problems.
I do.
They do care about our weight, evidently, though,
I
judging
do.
by
Well,
the
I'm
emails.
going to be a little lighter after that one with a 5:30 start.
Oh, well. We've done this before.
Yeah. And then what else? So what do the Riders do next? Hopefully get a receiver. I still think
They still need some explosiveness. And the answer, I don't think, lies in free agency anymore.
What about Jeff Knox? Is he a replacement for Samuel Guavin? Is that a guy still out there?
Didn't he sign somewhere?
I don't think he's signed anywhere. Not since I've looked. He's still on the list. So, hey, Riders, Jeff Knox is out there. I would think he'd be a pretty good replacement for Samuel Guavin. I know he played a little bit of middle linebacker, but he was really good as a weak side linebacker, really good as a special teams player.
Any other free agents out there? I'm just checking.
Well, Shaq Johnson signed today. I thought he would be a really good young Canadian receiver who would have been. He signed with BC. Good speed, that kind of stuff. They don't need any help on the defensive line. They don't need any help in the defensive backfield. And I think we should say congratulations to Jovan Johnson, who appears that he's kind of moving on. Sounds like it to be a defensive coach with Defiance University College.
I'd never heard of Defiance University before.
No, neither have I. It's actually a name of a town. Defiance is the name of the town. So it's not some sort of political statement. But Jovan was always good for a comment. He did a lot in the community, and good for him. And nice to see him starting the rest of his life.
I was just checking on Jeff Knox. He signed with Toronto in September of last year.
Yeah.
So who knows was he on the free agent list
on
per
the
se?
Free agent list, yes.
That would be an interesting signing.
Yeah.
But linebackers you can
read
find,
Saturday's paper.
You can find them. I remember going back to 2001, and George White had a couple of really good seasons with the Rough Riders as a all over the field type of linebacker, and he left via the option window to try his luck at the NFL. And Roy Shivers found somebody named Reggie Hunt, who's now in the Plaza of Honor.
Well,
you can find those guys.
Linebackers is it's kind of like running backs. You can find a running back. If you can't find a running back, I think you're kind of not something's questionable about your scouting staff. So receiver, linebacker, offensive line depth. You can always use offensive line, but I think you have to pay a lot more in free agency now. Josiah St. John's still out there. I think he might have a tough agent. Like Jonathan Hardaway has probably not been the easiest for teams to negotiate. So I wonder if they're trying to maybe avoid him, but they still sign guys from him. So maybe Josiah St. John.
Weston Dressler's still out there.
Yeah, that'd be I don't know. I know when he played for Winnipeg, he was outstanding, and Winnipeg was really good.
Their offense was better, and their team was better when he was in the lineup. He wasn't in the lineup as much as they would have liked.
Yeah. Would you sign him?
I would. I think Weston Dressler deserves to finish his career here, and B, I still think he's better than what they have.
Yeah. Is Rob Bagg the same though?
Well, their signing of Corey Watson pretty much
ended that one.
Precludes them from signing Rob Bagg. I don't know why they would think that Rob Bagg can't give them what Corey Watson traditionally gives, which is in the low 30s in terms of receptions, maybe 400 yards, couple of touchdowns.
Do you sign many free agents under 30?
No. I mean, William Powell, 31.
Yeah.
Or soon to be 31.
Micah Johnson's
Micah Johnson, soon to be 31. Zach Collaros will be 31 this season. Yeah. Corey Watson's almost 35 years old.
Naaman's 31, 32.
Naaman's 31. Manny Arsenault is 32 on September 17th.
AC Leonard's
still younger. But
not a whole youth movement going on there, was there?
Can you have sustained success when you're signing so many players over 30? Or, as you said, it's a year-to-year proposition now with these contracts. So,
well, maybe they're talking your idea. They're just trying to win the Grey Cup this year and not trying to get. I don't know how you operate a team on 1-year contracts. I really, I realize that's part of the game and you got to learn how to run it, and that's what there is. But even Cody Fajardo, why wouldn't he sign a 2-year deal?
There's no incentive for the players to sign a multi-year deal because the teams can void it after year one anyway with no penalty.
What a sport! No guaranteed money.
The most punishing sport
in the world.
And there's no guaranteed money. It just does not seem right. Why is hockey Why is football different than hockey? Different than basketball? Different than baseball?
I know, and they're supposed to take it too. It's supposed to be tough. Don't tell anybody you're hurt. Don't tell anybody you can't think straight. You can't pat yourself on the back because your shoulder's so messed up from making a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, the CFLPA really has some legitimate issues on which to bargain this time with regards to job security and player protection. And it's funny. I thought initially that money would be the big one, but I think a lot of the other issues relating to player safety and just player guarantees might become.
How can they not be workman's comp for football players too? Isn't that kind of ridiculous?
Well, the thing is though, you're signing up for a very physical job.
Yeah.
So, are you almost is the gun almost loaded as far as the inevitability of an injury?
Oh yeah.
Whereas, you and I sign up for workman's comp, we might get carpal tunnel.
So I got it when I fell.
So is that the right way to use the workman's comp system?
No, it's probably
when you're talking about a profession where some sort of bump is almost guaranteed. I don't know if that's the intent of workers' compensation.
But the same thing, they're workers and they should be compensated for getting injured on the job. Because you and I get hurt on the job, whether it's carpal tunnel or we trip over some of the wiring at the Briar, we're still covered to work. So it seems only fair.
Yeah, I don't know if that applies to professional football though. It would seem to me to be a riskier proposition, and therefore I don't think that's the intent.
Well, the players don't seem
comp.
to be pushing for it. It seems more the PAs pushing for it. They're trying to get workman's comp in a couple of provinces, get them to look at stuff. But you're right, you sign up for it, and it comes with all the non-guaranteed stuff you can take, including being cut if you get a bonus. That's the part that drive me bananas. Like with Chick and Dresser, they both took pay cuts to help the team win the 13 Grey Cup, with the idea you get your money back in 14 or 15. And then it become your time to get your money back, and you get cut.
Yeah, and that was sort of a unspoken. They thought that Brendan Taman would take care of them, and Brendan Taman would have taken care of them. But all that is lost as soon as you have a change in management.
Yep, and
that's the risk that you take. Where was the incentive for Weston Dressler or John Chick to sign for more than 1 year? People gave Brendan some flack 1 year, but I think in 2014, Chris Getzlaff made over $200,000.
Yeah.
Guess what? He played for about 70 during the Grey Cup year because of the contractual gymnastics performed by Brendan Taman. So yeah, that was a lot of money for Chris Getzlaff or any receiver in 2014, but they got the most outstanding Canadian in the Grey Cup for less than $100,000 the year before. So, but as long as a GM stays in place and someone as honorable as Brendan, they'll take care of you. But as soon as there's a change, that's the risk.
Yeah, but that may be an idea of overreacting how the bonuses are paid. I think John Chick had a date night that night with his wife, and he still went on a date night with his wife. So maybe that's an idea how they keep things in a little better perspective than you and I can.
Well, I went on a date night with my wife the other night.
Did you?
So
Isn't that nice?
Went to a movie. So
I know Brendan Taman went somewhere. He kind of built the Riders back in those days on the Bill Belichick model of, putting salaries off and rewarding them at the end, and he didn't get a chance to get caught up because they went 0-9.
Yeah.
So sorry, Brendan. But
want to read the?
Oh, here we go.
And hopefully do this more adeptly than I handled the intro.
Okay. Please rate us on iTunes and leave a review. It helps us grow the podcast. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email Rob at rvanstonepostmedia.com.
At postmedia.com.
What did I say?
You said rvanstonepostmedia.com.
We
both screwed it up today.
At rvanstone at postmedia.com, and we might read your question on the show with far better chances of less errors than I just read this announcement.
Yeah, we've just bungled everything procedural today.
But we're just talent, man. We're just here to look good and talk good.
Yeah.
Well,
we really mastered that, didn't we?
A good day, first day with our lips.
For Murray McCormick, I'm Rob Vanstone. Thank you for joining us today, and if you'll have us, we'll do this again next week. Take care.